Hey, this is Sasha Evdokov, founder of TRADERSFLY.com and InvestingHelpDesk.com. And today on InvestingHelpDesk.com, what I'd like to do is share with you some questions that most traders and investors ask me. So today's question is, do you have any trading advice to give someone starting out with little or minimal funds? So when you look at minimal funds, there's a couple of problems or issues that come around when you have a low account balance or low account capital. So one of the first problems that you have is broker problems for registering. This isn't always the biggest problem, but one of the first problems that some people come to me with. The second problem is the internal growth problems. And then the third is the external growth problems, which is more related to your account and actual investment account growth. So when we first look at the first problem and we look at brokerage problems for registering, there's certain brokers that have minimums. So if you take a look at here, Interactive Brokers, they have an individual account minimum, which is $10,000 US. Now, if you're putting money into an IRA, it's $5,000, and if you're less than 25 years or younger, it's $3,000. Now, they also have minimum requirements for trading, but this is one of the first issues that you come across if you have a low account balance, is that sometimes you can't even open a brokerage account properly with a trading firm because you just don't have enough money or capital. Now, some other brokers, they actually allow you to open up an account with a low account balance or even no minimum. So for example, at Trade King right here, you can see there's no account minimums. However, you need a $2,000 or more account balance if you want a margin account. So if you want to trade on margin, borrowed money from the broker, then you still need to have a $2,000 account minimum. And margin accounts are quite handy. They're helpful to use in trading, especially if you're trading options and things like that. But you could still have a cash account, but it's going to limit your trading ability. So in either case, you could still open an account because there isn't a minimum here at Trade King, but it would just be a cash account. And the same thing here if you go with TD Ameritrade, so you can see what is the minimum amount required to open an account. There is no minimum to open an account. However, $2,000 deposit is required for margin and option privileges, regardless of any promotional offer. And that is, again, a risk factor that they have to take into account. If you're trading on margin, if you're trading on options, there is that $2,000 minimum. Sometimes I've seen it at $5,000 to be the minimum, sometimes $750 or $500. So it really depends. But if you have a cash account, a lot of times there is no minimum with some brokers. But some of them do have, like I've showed you with Interactive Brokers, about $10,000 as the minimum. So the next problem that you'll run into is a personal growth problem if you have a low account balance. And that is because the learning curve is high, so it requires a lot of time and energy. A lot of that time and energy that many people don't have if you don't have the money, because you're probably, working a second or third job. You just don't have free time and energy to learn the business if you don't have the capital or money to sustain your own personal lifestyle. It is also expensive to learn the industry with books, courses, seminars, and mentoring. Not only is any education expensive, especially if you're doing it on your own, but the books, the courses, the seminars, and the mentoring in this industry specifically, because there's a lot of money that goes through the industry, it's even more so expensive. So that means your learning curve just becomes much more pricier. So think of it, if you go to school to become a electrician, it's a lot cheaper to get your electric license or electrician license than it is, for example, to become an anesthesiologist or doctor. Typically, the learning curve is much more expensive because you have to go through medical school and so forth. So the same thing if you want to become a photographer. A lot of the times, you can have the equipment, you can get the books, the courses, the seminars, and a book maybe on photography might be anywhere between, let's say, $5 and $25, whereas a book on trading or the stock market or investing might be just that much more. It might be, I've seen books $60, $80, $150 for trading, and some even more. And the same thing with seminars. A seminar on photography might be $300, might be $500, might be $1,000. I've seen seminars in the stock trading world be as much as $10,000 or $15,000. So it really just depends on the industry that you're in, because the industry has much more flow of money. So for you to grow personally in the stock market, it becomes more expensive to learn the industry just because the way that industry operates. And the third thing is that trial and error or mistakes cost you physical, real money. And if you don't have a lot of money, it becomes more difficult to grow personally, because you're going to learn from experience quite a bit. And those trial and error and mistakes that they cost you real money, it gets really expensive. So again, another thing that really just hinders you from that personal growth curve in learning this industry if you have little to no capital or a minimal amount of capital. Now, the next biggest problem or issue is the account growth problem that people have. And this is the one that most people think about when they get into the industries. They're always thinking about growth. So if you only have, let's say, $500, they're thinking about growing that account. And again, if you have little money, it's difficult to grow that account. And that is because you are limited in your positions and the type of trades that you can do when you have a small account. So for example, if you only have $1,000 and you can only open up a cash brokerage account that we just discussed, you're not going to be able to trade options. You're not going to be able to trade certain types of positions that are actually more lucrative, and some of the positions that many professional traders use, because they're technically safer positions, but they do have some other additional risks, but you won't be able to do those because of your account size. You're limited in the positions that you can set up and create. The other thing is, if things go against you, it's difficult to fix that position. So for you to adjust a position, so let's say if something goes against you in your trade or setup that you have, in order for you to fix it and get out of that position, sometimes it just takes maybe another $500 or $1,000, but you don't have that because you don't have that additional funds or money in that account. So it makes it more difficult to fix a position, and rather than coming out with a winning or positive position at the end of the month, you actually come out with a losing position because you just weren't able to fix the position because you're stuck, or you have to stay in, or you're not able to add to a certain side of that position, and it just makes it more difficult. So mistakes in your account cost you more, and more so on the psychological front. So every mistake that you make will cost you physical, real money in the stock market, just about. But when you have a smaller account, it also costs you psychologically, because when you have a low account balance of, let's say, $500, and you make a mistake and you lost about $150 of that, it's a bigger portion of it because it's psychologically a large sum of money. The absolute amount of $150 just seems like a lot. Whereas if you already have, let's say, $5 million in your bank account and you're losing $1,000, it just doesn't seem that much, because the absolute value, you still have that $5 million in your bank account or in your trading account. So that's the thing, is it wears you psychologically, especially when you're just getting started to grow that account. And if you don't have a lot of money, that psyche can really play a large role. In addition, the percentage that you make is minimal to the absolute value that things cost in the real world. So what I mean by this is, for example, food costs, let's say on average, $200 to $800 a month or a week for some of you that eat a lot, for whether you are rich or poor. Now, if you're really wealthy, you might, go out to eat much more, and you might spend, $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month for food. But in general, the cost for food for an average human being, if you go to the grocery store, $200 to $800, let's just say, for a family of 2 to 3. If you have a larger family, of course, it's going to be more. Now, that food cost of, let's say, $500 a month is going to be the same whether you're wealthy or whether you're poor. So in the big picture of things, if you start looking at 2% and looking at percentages on your account, on that food account, 2% on your account when you have $500 is only $10 per month. So it really doesn't sound that much. It's not enough to cover your food costs. However, 2% when you have $500,000 in your account is $10,000 a month. So when we compare this to our food cost example, obviously $10,000 a month is going to be able to pay for a lot of your necessities, your psychological necessities like shelter, your food, your safety, that kind of thing. Whereas if you only have $500 in your account, you can only make $10 per month on your 2%. That's not really, giving you a lot in the real world. And that is because the absolute value just seems larger, but the percentage is still the same. So 10,000 is just much larger in the absolute sense than $10 per month. Yet the food costs are still similar. Cell phone bills will still be the same, and car insurance will be on a similar level as well in the expenses. So it's important for you to really look at the bigger picture and focus on the percentages of gain rather than looking at your absolute dollar gain. So my recommendation, especially initially when you have a low account balance or a low capital account, invest in books, education, courses, and learn as much as you can. I know this may seem a little weird coming from me because I do have a lot of books and courses and things like that. But one of the reasons that I do have a lot of those books and courses and education is because that's what actually allowed me to propel and move forward, is because of books, education, courses, and material that I spent my money on that I've invested in myself. After that, slowly start investing, but focus on your percentage gain rather than the absolute dollar figure. And if you have a low account balance like $500, $1,000, you might only make $10, $20, and especially after commissions, you might be left with $3 in that bank, which doesn't seem like a lot, but then just multiply it times 10 or 100 to play and put that psyche back in check, because what you don't want to do is get discouraged, because you want to play the long game, continue to grow that account, and slowly with time you'll be able to put more and more money into that account as long as your trading is consistent and as long as you're getting better with trading. So with time, that account will grow as you become more consistent, and you can add money from other sources into your investment accounts rather than having it sit in a bank account. Now, if you want to really look at some things to get started, take a look at my website at TRADERSFLY.com. And when you take a look at it over there, go ahead and take a look at the Start Here page, and that's going to give you a lot of good books you should read, some starting videos, and things like that. And if you'd like to see more questions and answers, be sure to visit me at investinghelpdesk.com. And if you want to stay up to date, be sure to subscribe to the newsletter and sign up by clicking this button right here. You can even get a free trial to my critical chart service by just clicking this button, and it'll allow you to sign up to the critical chart service. Just if you're not interested in sticking with the program, make sure you cancel before that time frame is up. And of course, feel free to subscribe on YouTube so that way you don't miss another video. Thanks again for joining me, and remember to do what you love, contribute to others, but most importantly, live life abundantly.